We've all seen the videos on global warming, the melting ice, the sad polar bears, the affected communities, but no one ever seems to talk about how climate change can affect us, or what we can do about it. The problems always seem too far away, the solutions too big. Climate change does and will affect all of us. If not through natural events, then through the one thing we all have in common: food. But the future doesn't have to be bleak. We don't have to feel helpless, or throw our hands up and say, we're doomed anyway, there's nothing we can do. Because there is something we can do. We may not be able to do anything about wind turbines or solar panels, but there are solutions that we can partake in right in our own communities. Before we get to the solution, we need to talk about the problem. So what is the problem? How does climate change affect our food? The problem is our current agricultural system and eating habits. Almost all of the food we eat is produced on huge farms owned by multi-million-dollar corporations. Not only are these mega farms bad for the environment, but they are bad for our health. Industrial agriculture as we know it revolves around monoculture, the practice of growing one type of crop intensively on a large scale. Monoculture is bad for the earth because growing only one type of crop in an area depletes the soil of its nutrients and leaves it vulnerable to erosion. To combat these issues, the farmers rely heavily on chemical inputs such as fertilizers and pesticides. Fertilizer runoff from fields harms local wildlife and human populations. In order to clear space for these huge farms, companies tear down large portions of forests, destroying the trees, plants, and animals that call it home. 80% of global deforestation is due to agriculture. In addition, 70% of fresh water in the world goes towards agriculture, while 780 million people don't have access to a clean water source. The harvesting, packaging, and transportation of our food also has a huge impact on our planet. Not only does it take up large amounts of energy, but industrial agriculture is responsible for 13% of global greenhouse gases. So what can we do about it? We can't all just start growing our own food and living off the land. We don't have enough time or money. Here's the thing, we don't have to. We can improve the environment and help reduce climate change by healthy and sustainable eating choices. And environmentally friendly farming isn't all that hard.
Primarily, we're an all-organic grower, and organic just symbolizes renewability, regeneration. You can, it's completely sustainable because you're using practices that incorporate natural products to control the insects and things that are detrimental to an apple's health.
Support the farmers that put in the extra cost, extra time, and the extra effort in supporting our soils, which is really important for sustainability. Our groundwater is really important. As soon as it gets polluted, there's almost no going back.
Our organic methods are the thing that keeps us sustainable.
As consumers, it is up to us to sway the market. We may not be in charge of how food is produced, but we can have a say in what we buy. If we only buy food that is sustainably produced, we can prompt stores to start selling less and less of the big company foods and more environmentally friendly and locally grown foods. Supporting local farmers and eating locally grown foods, either from your farmer's market or grocery store, is really important.
Carbon footprint is a consideration. Fruit and vegetables that have to travel take a lot of times fossil fuels to get them there. When you're eating local product, all of the items are sourced locally and they don't travel very far.
You get the freshest, most flavorful fruit possible. When you're eating fruit grown in another country, you don't know what the growing practices are. So not only are you getting the best tasting fruit, you're getting the safest fruit.
Another great reason too is locally sourced food. It strengthens the community. You get to meet the person who works hands-on with the food, who is really engaged with the company versus other big box stores, who do provide local fresh food as well. But, this way, a lot of what you give goes straight to the farmer, and then they can use that for their workers. And I think that's one of the most important things for, sourcing locally.
And now that you know this, you can encourage your family, friends, coworkers, and more to shop the same way.
We can just look at the next generations. We want to leave a great impression, and then, it's about caring for our environment and leaving it, for them. That's really what's most important.
When people aren't eating products that they know, then they have no regard for how they were cultivated.
Well, we want everybody to be as healthy as they can, and eating locally is one way to do that, because all of your fruit, where it comes from.
As the UN food security expert Hilal Elvers said, there needs to be a huge shift from industrial agriculture to agroecology and support of the local food movement. Sometimes, not everyone can afford to buy organic or locally sourced foods. Even with these higher prices, there is still much you can do to make a difference. One way to do that is to eat less meat. No, this isn't going to suddenly turn into a video on why you should be a vegan or how horrible of a person you are for eating meat, but the meat industry has some serious impacts on the environment and our health. Huge factory farms that produce meat don't only cause damage to the animals they house. The pollution from these farms is so great that according to the NRDC, the water pollution from factory farms can produce as much sewage waste as a small city. The greenhouse gases from livestock are also detrimental. If cows were their own country, they would be the third highest carbon emission producing country in the world. While all agriculture does contribute to carbon emissions, the production of red meat is responsible for 10 to 40 times as many greenhouse gas emissions as vegetables and grains. Speaking of grains, the grain used to feed livestock in just the US is so large in number that if we used it to feed people instead, we could feed 800 million people. And while that meat feeds people, the 7 billion livestock in the US consume 5 times as much grain as the entire population does. Meat can also have a serious impact on our health. Excessive consumption of red and processed meat has been linked to chronic diseases like heart diseases, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cancer, while eating plant-based foods has been shown to reduce health risks and reduce your risk of getting coronary heart diseases by 42%. So we should all become vegetarians, right? Well, no. Everyone doesn't have to give up meat, but reducing meat consumption would greatly improve our planet. In fact, the Drawdown agrees, listing a plant-based diet as the 4th best solution to climate change. By adopting a completely plant-based diet, we would save $1 trillion in annual healthcare costs and lost productivity, as well as greatly reduce our carbon emissions anywhere from 63 to 70%. We can start by not eating meat 1 day a week. Meatless Mondays are a good way to get healthier and improve the environment. All we have to do is refrain from eating meat on Mondays and instead create healthy and appetizing plant-based dishes. We are eating 15% more meat than should be in our diet, and 1 day a week without meat would take that extra 15% out. By joining Meatless Monday, we can contribute to the already growing success of the campaign, which includes saving the lives of over 10.3 million land animals and eliminating 600,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions. Even if we have the resources, not eating meat can still be challenging. Despite the public perception, plant-based dishes can be healthy and cheap, as well as tasty and easy to make. I've never been much of a cook, as food has never played a huge role in my life, but I do remember the simple meals my grandmother used to make with healthy ingredients and lots of vegetables. While our culture is increasingly consuming less and less healthy food, we are moving farther away from the simple but delicious, easy-to-make meals of the past. As environmental journalist Michael Pollan said, "Don't eat anything your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food." If you don't know where to start, there are thousands of great meat-free recipes online that are good for you, the environment, and your taste buds. Your grandparents might even have a few to share. Remembering not to eat meat can also be a challenge, especially since it is so ingrained in our culture. Chris Darwin, the great-great-grandson of Charles Darwin, has developed an app called the Darwin Challenge, which reminds you to log a meat-free day every week and shows you the impacts that you are having on the environment. You can download the app in the App Store. For more resources and delicious meat-free recipes, visit meatlessmonday.com or meatfreemondays.com. Despite the challenging odds, there is something that all of us can do. Whether it is shopping locally grown foods, encouraging lawmakers to strengthen healthy farm policy, growing your own fruits or vegetables, or going meat-free on Mondays, we can all help to preserve this beautiful planet of ours. As Chris Darwin told me in our email exchange, there's nothing more powerful than personal change.